Now let me hear you welcome Rick Castaneda.
All right. Thank you so much for that warm welcome and that musical intro. One of my favorite songs, actually. So you can tell what generation I'm from right away. I want to thank Dave Urso and Ian Linden and the i2i selection committee for inviting me to come share my story with you today. Oftentimes, when a person attends a TED Talk style speech or presentation, workshop, whatever the case may be, you expect to receive some form of motivation or inspiration from someone or others, or even they themselves believe are an expert in a specific field, and it also comes with a certain indication of leadership and to a greater degree success. And go ahead and so yes, over the years I've had the honor of holding many leadership roles and have been looked to for my opinion and involvement on an assortment of issues and activities, and people have sought my opinion as it relates to working with children and families and working with our newest neighbors who originally come from other countries. I've also been blessed with some levels of success in my personal life, a relative success with an upward progression in my career, in status, pay, and responsibility, and I've also been blessed with a beautiful and healthy family. And truthfully, those are the parts of me that I want others to know and that I want others to see, that I want you to see. The parts that are social media postable and Facebook worthy. I know that I want others to see the success that I've achieved by my hard work, by my compassionate nature, and by God's grace and blessing, and I want them to be moved by my story, a story of overcoming. And actually, when I was asked for the title of my talk by the event organizers, they asked if it was about overcoming failure. And I had to tell them, no, actually, it's not. It's about embracing failure. I truly believe that our true and authentic success, our true passions, our true calling, and our true happiness arise from a life marked by the embracing of failure as much as embracing and celebrating the success. Recently, a professor at Princeton University, Johannes Haushofer, published a CV listing his career failures on Twitter. And in his words, in an attempt to balance the record and encourage others to keep trying in the face of disappointment. The document contains sections titled degree programs I did not get into, research funding I didn't get, and paper rejections from academic journals. And this is what he had to say about why he felt compelled to post this. He said, "Most of what I try fails, but these failures are often invisible, while the successes are visible. I've noticed that this sometimes gives others the impression that most things work out for me. As a result, they are more likely to attribute their own failures to themselves, rather than the fact that the world is stochastic. Applications are crapshoots, and selection committees and referees have bad days too." So, in the spirit of Professor Haushofer today, what I can probably tell you about success is probably not anything that you couldn't get from a thorough reading of a John Maxwell book or several of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. essays. So I think that the most value that I can give you today is not in what I know. This speech will not be a list of 5 or 7 or 21 things a la John Maxwell or John Acuff that are steps to leadership or success. I can't offer success formulas or how-tos, and I may even contradict myself in this own speech today. So as it relates to success, I'm simply going to share with you what I don't know. And so the things that I don't know. So I don't know the formula to the magic of success. I don't have that for you today. I can't give that to you as maybe some, there are TED Talks online about success and how to achieve it. I don't know everything about everything, not even the areas that I am most passionate about. And I don't know the story of or experience of another unless. And we'll get into that. So the first point is self-explanatory, so I won't spend any more time on that reality. I don't know the formula to the magic of success. So the second point, I don't know everything about everything, including the topics that I'm most passionate about. Many of us make the mistake believing that the leader of an organization or a group or even a movement has to be the smartest person in the room, and they must have all the answers. And I know that I used to believe this leadership myth and probably still struggle with it, even when I'm asked to serve in a leadership role today. But if I am pursuing knowledge, knowing everything, then I am not pursuing leadership. The pursuit of knowledge is actually limited, in my view, in and of itself, somewhat self-serving. As Einstein once said, any fool can know. The point is to understand. And this understanding that Einstein refers to implies a process in the acquisition of said knowledge, the learning process. Einstein's quote also implies a deeper goal of the learning process than merely cerebral gluttony. Just the pursuit of knowledge can sort of we can consume ourselves in that and pursuing this level of cerebral gluttony. So he's referring to, I believe, the pursuit of wisdom. Einstein further said that wisdom is not a product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Scholarly pursuit, just for the sake of scholarly pursuit, operates often independent of the heart, devoid of the love of learning. So we must be working in the work of honing our critical and scholarly skills for a reason, for a purpose. We need meaning to foster a connection between our learning and our passion. And passion is generated by the exercise and strengthening of the muscle in the middle of our chest. You must do to care. The creation and growth of passion within us is the result of the perfect union of the head and the heart in the midst of the river of the learning process. As we do, we develop and learn and grow. But for that to happen, as Mark Twain once cautioned us, we must never let our schooling interfere with our education. Because, as we're all aware, not all knowledge is obtained within the four walls of a classroom. So we must do. To this point, in the words of Angela Davis, it speaks to the epistemological function of praxis. This is how we avoid our college years becoming the total self-involved feast of the cerebral gluttony I was referencing previously. The other even more important aspect of praxis is that we must take the daunting steps to take the focus off ourselves and build relationships with those around us. I believe that we are created for the primary purpose of relationship. That's why we are here. Relationship with our God and relationship with others. I strongly believe that the greatest sin of our existence is selfishness. I say this because I know that I struggle with the affliction of self-indulgence. I have to fight every day that voice in my head that says that it's all about me. The greatest and highest form of praxis, in my opinion, is our connection with other human beings. So thirdly, the thing I don't know another story or experience unless I listen. The lost art of leadership is that of listening. Listening means letting others speak and share their stories, much in the same way that the organizers of this event were inspired to call us together to simply share our stories with each other. Listening means letting others speak, sharing their viewpoints, sharing their experiences, and I believe that sharing our stories with each other is an absolutely powerful force and where authentic advocacy and leadership must begin. So conversely, listening also means that at times we need to shut the hell up, right? So most of the time, actually. And if I were the type of speaker to use expletives in my speeches, this is probably exactly where I would use an expletive to emphasize the degree to which we should shut up and listen to each other. This is the most important lesson that I learned from the National Undocumented Youth Movement and from a good friend of mine, Isabel Castillo. And actually, my slides got out of order, so let me show that slide again. I had been working on a local level to advocate for undocumented families and especially students and young people for a number of years here in Harrisonburg. And I had a lot of experience and knowledge on the topic. But I am not undocumented, and neither is anyone else in my family. I am Latino, more specifically Mexican-American Mennonite, originally from Michigan, who went to high school in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area, and now I live here in Harrisonburg, and most recently worked for the public school system. So that's my context. I realize that in no way am I a spokesperson for undocumented youth. Although I've been asked to, I do not anymore answer questions to the media on behalf of undocumented youth. And to take that even further, I don't even represent Latinos or Hispanics. I don't speak for them. The only Hispanics that I represent, that I can authoritatively speak for, are Mexican-American Mennonites that are originally from Michigan, went to high school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and now live in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and work for the school system. Those are the only Hispanics, the only people I speak for, right? So that's it. And Isabel has achieved considerable notoriety. These are pictures of her being arrested for standing up for the rights of undocumented youth. And she has achieved considerable notoriety and acclaim for her advocacy. She earned an honorary doctoral degree from the University of San Francisco. She's been featured in national publications for her work as well, and received honors from her alma mater at Eastern Mennonite University for that work. But few know her long story. They know the successes. They know the things she's achieved. Many know her story of academic success and overcoming to finally find a path to college and completing her degree. Now she's in a master's program at Eastern Mennonite. But few know the painful and low points behind that story, where there wasn't any light, where there was 2 steps backwards for every step forward. So my grandfather told me something one night. He was visiting my home as we pored over all the research that he had done to compile our family genealogy. In the early 1900s, they began to draw the lines at the border between Texas and Mexico, and that's where he lived as a young boy, in order to put up fences to determine where the border was and who lives where. And at this point, my family all considered themselves Mexican citizens. But the U.S. government agents came in and said that, well, everything on this side is Mexico, and everything on this side is the U.S. And there was no green card, there was no immigration official to check our papers. My family simply lived on this side when someone came along and arbitrarily drew the lines, and they were therefore now U.S. citizens. There was nothing better or more noble or more moral about my family that we deserved one country's citizenship over another. I don't deserve U.S. citizenship any more than anyone else. And for this reason, I've always felt a sense of responsibility to fight for immigration issues for undocumented students and their families. There, but by the grace of God, go I. It could have been a matter of a few hundred feet, and me and my family is fighting for our right to be in this country, or that's home to us, and for me, fighting for a right to even go to college or attend school. So I should say before I continue that there are a few things that I do know, and they're the following. I do know how to tie my shoes. I do still know the Pythagorean theorem. I'm not sure why I still know that, but I do. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I do know the entire lyrics to the Hail to the Victors, the University of Michigan fight song. And I also know how to make you the best cup of coffee you've ever tasted. But most importantly, I know my story, my experience. I believe that passions always come from a very personal place. No matter how altruistic or seemingly selfless those passions are. Actually, especially for altruistic passions. They must come from a personal place. So I will share with you a little of my story. My passions start with this little boy who, yes, this is me, although a much younger version of me with a much wider collar and much more denim in the vest area. But yes, that's me. And the smile on my face did serve as an adequate mask for everything that was going on at this stage of my life. I was about 6 or 7 years old here and was living in Saginaw, Michigan, where I was born. My father had just been sent to prison recently. He was convicted of attempted murder, and I'm sure he had other charges of drug possession and distribution and some gang involvement. Over the next 7 years, he was in and out of prison, absent as much as he was present, which in truth, at that time, as a young child, I was very thankful for his absence because when he was home, he was an abusive alcoholic and probably one of the meanest and scariest people that I've ever known in my life. So my mom was 16 when she got pregnant with me, and my parents had both dropped out of high school soon after that. So poverty, abuse, drug abuse, and violence were themes that attempted to dominate the other competing values that were a part of my moral universe at the time. The values that my father attempted to teach me as it related to manhood and masculinity were clear messages of aggression, violence, abuse, and objectification. At a decisive point in my life, I had to make a decision, a conscious choice to reject those messages and to attempt to construct for myself from the ground up a new definition of what it means to be male, to be a man, to be an adult. And as I grew older, we moved to Goshen, Indiana, And my mother remarried a man who had just graduated from Goshen College, a Mennonite college in northern Indiana. And soon after, we moved again and started attending a Mennonite church in Lancaster, PA, where my new stepdad got a job. And this was a major turning point in my young life. I found in this church experience a personal value system that resonated with me, and I found a path to an education in the Mennonite schools that saved me physically and spiritually. I converted to the Mennonite faith at 16, and I attended the Mennonite high school in Lancaster. And after high school, I decided to do the next Mennonite thing and came here to Harrisonburg to attend EMU. So now the junction of a low point in my life, a place of sorrow and abuse, and a high point, a place of joy and empowerment, is a place where a major passion of mine was born. The sorrow and the joy, equally important in the birth and the development of my passion. As Khalil Gibran so eloquently put it, your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. And could you keep your heart in wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. Because of what I had been through, specifically in my childhood under my father's regime, and the subsequent nurturing and training in the Mennonite church and the community, I was motivated and equipped to start the Men of Character program, a program focused on the unique needs of Latino middle school and high school age young men, especially those most at risk for involvement in destructive and risky behaviors. So about 15 years ago, as I surveyed the landscape of youth serving programs in the area, I noticed there was no one paying attention to the unique needs of Latino young men. No one but the Harrison Police Department, but for all the wrong reasons. So I started the Men of Character program as a sort of anti-gang program. I have been running this program for going on 15 years now, and it's one of the things that has given me so much joy and satisfaction throughout my short life. From my sorrow has come great joy. Gibran once again. Some of you say, joy is greater than sorrow. And others say, nay, sorrow is the greater. But I say unto you, they are inseparable. Together they come, and when one sits alone with you at your board, remember that the other is asleep on your bed. As I said before, I believe that the sources of our altruistic passions need to be highly personal. We have to be connected to them. For me, the greatest commandment has been a guiding principle in this area. And it is only recently that I felt a need to look at this commandment differently than I previously had. So Matthew 22, 36 to 40, teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So in this passage, Jesus tells us what we need to do, to love God first of all. To love others is next, but it's in how he tells us to love others that had about 10 years ago hit me like a truck. We are to love others as we love ourselves. The word as can be seen in a couple different ways here, either to love others while we love ourselves, or to love others in the same way that we love ourselves. So either way, we are called to love ourselves. We cannot completely and properly love someone if we hate ourselves. We must love ourselves to fully love. We must. I've been driven to wrestle with myself and love for myself for so many years, for so many reasons, and in so many ways. I've wrestled to forgive myself. I've wrestled with forgiving myself and to embrace my gifts and my faults equally as a part of me. Of course, always seeking to improve myself, but I had to embrace my full self first. I had to stop feeling like two different people, one that I have inside and one that I let other people see, my facade. Passions start from within. They have to. We cannot pretend to come to someone because we want to help them. That only exacerbates the sense of hierarchy, of patriarchy and imperialism. Because we are better off than they. They need our help. We need to help them. I feel that we need to get rid of the concept of helping the less fortunate from our missional or altruistic vocabularies. Until we can embrace our weakness, our brokenness, we do not fully open ourselves to be truly of aid to others. Yes, we are blessed with different privileges. Yes, but we also each have our areas of vulnerability and pain and sorrow. That's the human experience that we all share. As Lila Watson, the Aboriginal activist from Australia, once said, "If you have come to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." We are endlessly and inextricably bound together and interconnected. We are created for relationship. One of the goals of the work that I do and the times that I get to speak in front of groups is I desire to seek a way to encourage our sense of connection to each other. And so it's normal, very normal to be drawn to someone based on similarities. My hope is that we learn individually and as a group collectively to be drawn to others based on differences as much as we're drawn to others based on similarities. Only through healthy expression of our own personal sorrow and an embracing of the vulnerabilities, the weaknesses, and our ugly side can we truly walk side by side with someone authentically. This is a quote I saw recently by Neil Donald Walsh. "God is in the sadness and the laughter, in the bitter and the sweet. There is a divine purpose behind everything, and therefore a design presence in everything." I really resonated with this quote that God's in the sadness and the bitter in the same way that Mother Nature is in the hurricanes and the tornadoes, as well as the sunshine and the life-giving rain. Often, we're waiting for some good and noble emotion to rise up deep within us before we can act or move to impact positively the world around us. In this way, often, never moving because we often just don't feel good enough. But more often than not, it will not be from those amazing feelings of comfort and blessing, nor of good and altruism, that the most important ways that we can reach out and connect with others to impact the world around us. Often it will be from those deep feelings of sadness and rejection and loneliness and even failure that will be the root of effectual good in our lives. I do believe there is a profound purpose for the failures and low points of our lives. I do believe that they are just as valuable and needed as the high points and successes. I'll leave you with the words of Uriah Mountain Dreamer, a poem called The Invitation. "It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dream, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals, or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it, or fade it, or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own. If you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, to be realistic, to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul, if you can be faithless and therefore trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it's not pretty every day, and if you can source your own life from its presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand at the edge of the lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done to feed the children. It doesn't interest me who you know or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. Thank you.